I know that everything comes from work, right? Because I've never had that that thing just magically happen for me. It's always been intention and aligning myself, with I wholeheartedly believe the definition of luck is opportunity meets preparation, right? And when you think that way, you're constantly trying to prepare and make sure that you're ready for the things that are coming up,
Yep.
right? In combat, right? I guess I tie a lot of things back to combat because in combat you have to have decision velocity, right? You have to be able to make decisions fast and make intentional decisions and know what possible course corrections that there are out there. There's always going to be things that you have to adapt and overcome and move around. So when we were putting that book together and putting together how to set targets, what I wanted to do was change the way that we did things. It was more executing on the target, right? When you look at this as a target rather than a goal, it's all about execution. And hey, what are the possible pinch points? What are the possible obstacles that may get in the way? Okay, well, if this obstacle comes up, how can we get ahead of that? Like what could be a default, a plan B, a plan C, right? So just extracting the default, extracting the possible obstacles that come up starts to give us a better picture. So when we do hit them obstacles, we can move in a different way and execute towards that target.
Yeah, the way I kind of visualize it is like if we were to walk through a minefield. It's one thing to walk through a minefield this way. However, now we have an aerial view and we can see the mines, and now we plot out our path through the minefield. Now you can really walk through the minefield because you know where those eventual traps are, right?
Right.
And it was, I really liked that part of it, and it helped a lot. Like there's some things I'm already doing because of that. One of them, as stupid as it sounds, was stretching every day.
Right.
All right, but I do. I've 10, 15 minutes every single day, and I've done it, since then. Some business ones, like I'm on a big old recruiting spree right now. I got people coming through the office every day. But it was, I know who I'm looking for because of that, like exactly who I'm looking for. And that gave me a lot of clarity in what I want to accomplish this year with it, how I'm going to accomplish it, which was huge. But the second thing was you did an exercise where we all closed our eyes and you kind of took us through this meditation. And I won't take you through the whole thing, but here's what I got out of it. At the end, you're basically, talking to an older version of yourself, right? And then it's telling you what your life is about to become, those types of things. And that, for me, going through the exercise, I'm like, oh my gosh, it gave me more clarity on what I want, in the next 10 years, and really what I know I'll accomplish. I don't know how it's all going to happen necessarily, but that was like, wow, this is very cool because, most people that are listening to this, they know me, they know my, I went through a heart transplant, I died twice, blah, 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 right? And I don't mean to like mitigate or, minimize that necessarily, but you've heard it before. But I feel like I'm on a 40-year run. The next 40 years, I'm going to give everything I have. The good Lord may take me tomorrow, but being intentional with every day, it goes back to your entire teaching and making sure that you understand it. Another interesting thing that happened, and this is a third, I know, but so I was sitting next to Brandon Barnum. We both know Brandon. And he and I, we've known each other a long time. We were, together at HOA. I was the original CEO and all that. But we had kind of, lost acquaintance, and we got reacquainted. And he had told me about, like, writing down, goals. He was challenged by, who was it? Chicken Soup with the Soul guy, Mark Victor Hansen.
Okay.
Write down 100 goals. He wrote down like 300, and I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. And then a lot of them started to come to fruition. So I went home actually the next week, and I started writing down, and I got to 47. I'm like, good Lord, how do you get to 100? And I think now I'm at 62. But one of them was a hole-in-one, and another one was having a video get over 1 million views. And that was one of 62 now, right? Mm-hmm. I hit a hole-in-one the next day that I wrote it down.
Wow.
Which I never had before. And Hank and I had a video that's now like 1.8 million views. I had never had anything that ever hit 10,000. So even though we're talking about breaking things down to the very finite, exactly how we're going to accomplish it, which is extremely important, I kind of go back to the simplistic, if everybody knows Jim Rohn, what is a goal? Think about what you want and write it down. That's step one, right? And then you can, break it down deeper. So it was awesome. But the event was incredible. But then I found a little bit more about your story. First and foremost, your husband, you're a father of seven, right? Yeah. Incredible. You're a Marine, right? Yes. And you served in our military. And then today, you do consulting and have done consulting for years with companies that have gone, some of them gone to 9 figures. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a pretty big leap. So, tell me a little bit about your military career. What was that like? Why did you get into the military? What did you learn there?
Oh man. So one of the big reasons that I went into the military is just because it was always like this lifelong dream of mine is to be a Marine. Right? Yeah. You see the uniforms, you see the way that they operate, you see, and as I was getting ready to graduate high school, it was like this light bulb coming on that, hey, I could go to college. I have some scholarships. I have some ability to go to college, or I can go down this route, which is the Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. And the mindsets that I had as an 18-year-old kid, I knew were going to take me to a bad place if I went down the college route. I would have ended up partying and drinking my way right out of college, and who knows where I'd be now. I knew that I still needed some discipline. I knew that I needed some transition as far as going from that home life to being an adult, right? Yeah. I still needed a babysitter. I needed that. Yeah. I needed that. If I screw it up so bad, I still have the barracks in the chow hall. Yeah. Yeah. So it was kind of that. Okay, this is probably the best path for me. Which, in retrospect, I wouldn't change it at all. It was definitely the right path for me to set me up for success. In the Marine Corps, I mean, some of the biggest things that I learned were how not to lead, right? I had some really, really bad leaders, and the funny thing is some of the junior Marines underneath me were the ones who taught me the right way to lead. It was like the old Marine Corps, real hard way, the way that you see on TV, the Full Metal Jackets, the Heartbreak Ridge, them guys just really super hard and no emotion, things like that, which that's the way I led while I was in the Marine Corps. It wasn't until I got out that I started to look at things from a different angle and take some things that some of the guys told me when I was in, because when I transitioned to an NCO, everybody told me you can't be friends with anybody anymore, right? You've got to no fraternization. You've got to draw this hard line, and you've now got the blood stripe and all these different things. And it was if that guy challenges you, pop rank, take him out in the back and beat the crap out of him, right? So it was just that kind of mentality, and which was easy for me because that's kind of the way I grew up. It was small town, came from a military household where I grew up wrestling, boxing, playing football. It was all high impact, so everything just kind of fit where I could easily go down that path. So I guess like the big thing coming out was trying to transition from taking that hard frame and putting it into different businesses, trying to be a leader in other businesses. Like, civilians don't respond to that at all. Right, yeah. Right. In the Marine Corps, you can kind of force your way to work. You might end up getting shot in the back of the head, but there's also some levels of respect and discipline that they're going to follow what you say. Yeah. coming out in the civilian world, you get a lot of people that will not respond at all. They'll walk off. You start losing people. You're not getting the things that you need, right? They just won't do it. So figuring out how to communicate in a different way, trying to listen to understand, trying to operate and lead from example. And so there, as a Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps, I was a better leader than I was when I was an NCO.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. It's kind of, have you ever read the book Power versus Force?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very much that kind of concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can be forceful when you're given a title and people have to listen. And then there's power that no title's needed and people will listen it just because, right? Yeah, it seems like, I mean, I can only imagine, right? I've never been in the military, but yeah, you got to follow suit. You got to listen to orders, or bad things happen.
Right.
In the corporate world, people just quit and they leave.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go somewhere else where somebody's not an asshole to me every day, right? But so you started to make that transition, and then when did you get out of the military? Like, how did you transition out of the military into the business world?
Yeah, so coming out of the Marine Corps, I thought, I'm going to go down, be a cop in Vegas. That's going to be the easy way to go. It's just going to, I'm going to fall right in line, jump right back into the same type of structure. Everything's going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, come to find out, you get out of the Marine Corps and they do their psych evals. Well, my psych evals came back while I was going through police academy in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And when my psych evals came back, they labeled me PTSD. As soon as they did that, it was this quick exit because they can't, you're too much of a liability. So it was like exit and then like, where the heck do I go now? So I was kind of up in the air, like, what do I do? Where do I go? And I figured, well, I'll go back to Wyoming, jump in the mines with my dad and my brother, be, $150,000 a year, work half the year. Sounds like that's the way I need to go. So I get back there. It's about a 3-month long hiring process to get into the mine. So started that process, and one of my buddies came to me and said, "Hey man, why don't you come sell cars?" I was like, "Yeah, that's probably not me. That's probably not my deal. Probably isn't going to work." And anyways, he kept pushing. So finally, I went there. Going from the Marine Corps, high sense of discipline, high sense of honor, all integrity, like you people have your back, to a place of like the biggest snakes in the world that are all out to get you, that will do anything to take advantage of you, or it was just like this huge, like, eye-opening moment of like, oh my gosh.
I remember you talking about in your book how people would be like, oh, well, I gave you the keys or whatever, just so they could get a little snippet of the commission.
Yeah. So split deals. It was people saying, oh, well, that was my customer yesterday or whatever, so you didn't go out and talk to them. And then they'd go out and grab them, and you'd realize, oh, well, they didn't know him at all. It was just a bunch of shady stuff going on at all points in time. So the first month in, I was like, man, this is not for me. And I went and sat down with my father-in-law. It wasn't my father-in-law at the time, but and he was actually in the oil field. And I was like, hey, like, maybe I should just come to the oil field while I'm waiting, to get on at the mines. And he's like, well, I mean, you could always quit. That's the easy answer, right? You can always quit and just step out. No big deal. Or, and that's where I kind of leaned in.
Yeah.
He says, or you can get in a position to change it. I was like, well, that's a different answer. He says, you could influence the whole car business. You could change everything. And that's the path I went down. I was like, well, let me try to figure this out. So jumped in both feet, busted my tail, and ended up becoming their youngest general manager that they had ever had.
Wow.
Took that little tiny store that was selling 30 to 40 cars a month, scaled them up to 100. It was, okay, well, this kid seems to know what he's doing, so let's promote him again. Let's make him our like traveling GM. Let's open up some more stores, have him go in, fix stores, make them operate, do things the right way. So started running around, changing all the way that we were operating in all these other stores. We ended up in this store in Rapid City, and that's kind of where everything really started to make sense. Was, hey, what if I got rid of salesmen? Like, what if there was no salesman? What if we just had some people go out there and give the people the information that they're asking for and make them have fun?
Yeah.
Right? Make it all about the experience. So we did that. We hired on a bunch of people called customer experience. We called them specialists at that point. So they were customer experience specialists. And they would go out, greet everybody, register them for the sale, show them whatever car they wanted to see, take them on test drives, give them the prices on things. Imagine that. You walk in and they give you the price. It's not...
you don't have to like get a microscope and kind of see where it's at, before 900 things. And
Right. No big runaround,
Yeah.
just like transparent.
Yeah.
And we ended up taking that store. It was a used car store that we had just opened. We ended up scaling that one to 100 quickly. And then, ended up getting a Mitsubishi franchise that we attached to it. Just trucking along. Then it was, okay, well, why don't you go to Casper and do the same thing? We bought a Mitsubishi store there. So again, go there, start scaling that one. And then we had bought another 2 stores in Rock Springs, which was my original hometown. And they're like, hey, we want to land you in this store and really hone it in and make things happen. So we bought a Ford store and a Nissan store, and I took over the Ford store. And the Ford store was selling roughly between 60, 80 cars a month, doing well.
Yeah.
Not doing anything bad. And I came in, and at that point in time, the general manager and the finance manager walked out. So it was me and all the salesmen left except for 3. So it was me and 3 salesmen.
Wow.
And it was like, okay.
Well, this is in your hometown, Rock Springs.
So, okay, let's figure this out. So we started to really pull things in, and I took them 3 salesmen and kind of reframed the way that they were operating and put them as I called customer experience managers. And then realized, okay, well, they're more on the sales side. So what if I made them sales managers? What a sales manager is truly supposed to do is go out and manage the sale, right? So if I tear down the walls, make them sales managers, and go out and hire customer experience managers, that might make sense. So if you think about it in terms of like steps to the sale, right? You've got the meet and greet, the build rapport, the investigate, the demo drive, right? And then from there you've got your write up, you're going through and you're going to the close, right? What I found is that salespeople never did the whole job. They would always skip around and skip steps. So I knew, we all know that a process works, right? Well, where's the process breaking? Well, the process is breaking right after the write-up, essentially. So I could get people to hear, but now I needed people that could do all this. So then I realized, well, the sales managers are basically that. They never want to go out and meet and greet. They never want to go chase customers. They don't want to go on demo drives. They always want to just throw keys and do that thing. So I was like, well, let's look at this from a different angle. Let's make our customer experience managers make this experience good, right? The beginning. Because if I can get, the more people I get on demo drives, the better my closing ratio is, right? I already have the model of transparent pricing. I've already put this thing together where it's more, we go out and price our vehicles out 500 miles and price within the top 5, and we'll show you where we got the information. Hey, if you want to go shop that store,
Yeah.
here's the information. Go shop them. So we already had that going, and then this was like the final tick. Putting customer experience managers in, no sales managers, no walls. Everything's out on the showroom. Everything's 100% transparent. We show you what your car is worth. We show you what our car is worth. We're showing you the money that we're making. It's 100% transparent. And all of a sudden, we take that store from selling, 80 on a good month to selling 250.
Wow.
We were the only Ford store in the nation to own 80% of our market. The closest one was 40%. We ended up taking our closing ratio from 15 to 20% to 80%. The be-back bus, which, everybody, it's the, when a customer leaves and, be-back bus never comes back.
Yeah.
What we found is because we were so transparent and honest and just all about creating an experience for the customer, they would go down to another lot where they'd get the old, hey, I can't keep track of the colors, let alone the prices, and they'd be like, okay, well, I'm just going to go back to where they're honest with me.
Right.
Right. So our B-backs were actually coming back more and more, and then people started talking about us, and it just continued to grow. So then it was, okay, take this and put it a little bit everywhere. And the owner, it became time being the VP of the organization to time to either buy in or get out.
Yeah.
Right. So it was, all right, I guess I'm going to buy in. We get down to about the last couple days before I bought in, and it was mid-February in Rock Springs, Wyoming. It was 60 below, and I just got done shoveling my driveway out.
Yeah. Sounds awful.
And the owner came to me and said, hey, are you sure you want to be in Rock Springs the rest of your life? I was like, as a matter of fact, no. No, I don't. Well, where do you want to go? I'll back you wherever you want to go. And I picked here. So I came here mid-17 and started looking for dealerships, getting ready to figure that out. And his brother ended up in a bind. So he said, hey, you got to come back. We got to regroup. And I got to go bail my brother out. I was like, well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's where my coaching and consulting business was launched, right?
Okay.
It was like, hey, I'm going to try this thing. And so I wrote the book to get into car dealerships and thinking, hey, if I could just create this experience across all these different dealerships, why wouldn't they want it?
Yeah.
Well, turns out dealerships didn't want it. They wanted to continue on their old ways and do their own thing. So,
which is so funny because you had numbers, right?
Yeah.
You can be like, no, this is literally these are the numbers. I was able to turn car dealerships around, and they're like, no, we're good with 15% market share.
Yeah, we've got it figured out. We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
One time it became very interesting. I had a dealership was like, hey, we want to bring you in, but we want you to come work for us. I was like, well, okay, I'll come work for you, but here's what I want to do. I'll build a whole different sales department from you guys. I'll put it over here, but I want 50%. And he goes, well, if you build that and you do that, you're going to be making more money than me. So, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'd just rather not do it. So I was going to add another $300,000 to his top line revenue.
Yeah.
Or gross right off the get-go, and he'd rather not do it. Wow. Told him I didn't need any of your leads, any of your stuff. I'm just going to take this and I'm going to build this over here. I'll even tell you how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And you can go do it on your own if you want. He never built it. Never did it. So it was kind of interesting going out on my own and realizing that I wasn't going to end up in the car business. I ended up with a bunch of just going out and speaking and doing things. I ended up in SaaS companies. So I ended up with a big one up in Washington that was a $500,000 valuation company. Then ended up in another one down in Southern California that was a cloud. They'd put class action lawsuits in the cloud and distribute access as needed. And they ended up scaling to over 100 million. And local companies here, fractional design, they ended up going to $100 million valuation.
Yeah, it was
Design Pickle.
Pickle, yeah.
So I coached with them in the beginning. Then my business partner ended up coming in when I went out and bought the lab and moved away.
Yeah.
He wasn't my business partner at the time. He was just a friend. But that same business partner that I have now, I hired into my lab. When I bought the infectious disease lab, I brought him in to help me scale and sell that one. So it was bringing him in, owning our home, and figuring out where we stood out in the market, right? What could we do to compete with like LabCorp and things like that? Like they've got big marketing dollars, they've got big labs. Like how do I compete as a small business against them guys? Well, I have to do something different, right? So my first thought there was how do I own my home and do something that LabCorp can't do? Well, I can focus on these individual emergency clinics and things like that. The small, what are they called? Like, gosh dang it, now I can't even think of what they're called. The urgent cares.
Yeah.
So I could focus on these little urgent cares, and I could give them 6 and 12-hour turnarounds, where everybody's offering 24-hour turnaround, which was huge. I could give them 6 and 12-hour turnarounds because I had 2 big quant studios that we were running. It was like 300 and something plates an hour. We could really turn things around. I mean, a lot of times we could turn around in 3 hours. But we guaranteed 6 to some people and 12 to the others. And then I was like, hey, what if I could go and talk to some of these COVID tents, the people that are running the tents and doing things like that. And I ended up running into a guy he was doing instant testing for these COVID tents. And I was like, well, let's look at his operation. He asked me to come over and see if I could identify any pinch points. So I started looking at the flow of traffic, how he could change the flow of traffic, how he could increase his test ran, because he was running the instance where he would swab them, they would sit there for 15 minutes, and then he'd take the results out to him. I was like, well, we have this system where I could text them what their results are. So all you'd have to do is swab, stick them in the bucket, and send them on their way, and we would text them later.
Oh, yeah.
So we ended up implementing that process. He went from only being able to do about 100, 150 a day to doing 300 to 700 a day. And then we ended up getting, a contract with the homeless, and we were doing 2,500 a day with them. So, I mean, it was just,
Wow.
It was just finding the right relationships and really trying to figure out how to hone them in and help their business out. Because if you can step into a business and help their business out, all it's going to do is help your business.
Yeah.
Right? So then it just transitioned back into coaching when I scaled and sold the lab. My business partner came to me and said, hey man, like you've already done this, you've implemented, like let's do this thing together.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's kind of neat because you've come from a very different perspective in business. And today, you might be listening to this in 10 years, but today in 2025, the coaching world is gone bananas. In the last 5 years, it's just gone bananas. Everybody's a coach. Everybody can consult. Blah, 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 blah. However, if you look at the actual fruit of the labor of somebody's done to gain any knowledge other than reading a couple books, usually the fruit's not there, right? They haven't built companies. They haven't turned around car dealerships. They haven't built an infectious disease company, understood what it took to scale and sell, a company. And yet, you're in that space and you're competing against all, and I don't even want to say you're competing, right? Because you're not. They're getting the same, for lack of a better term, uneducated person that just needs someone to tell them what to do. because they're a shiny object on Instagram or whatever. But you work with a much higher caliber. And I have to go back to something you said a second ago, because you were talking about the dealership, you were talking about the GM that wouldn't take you on for, creating a whole new division of his company and all that stuff. Because I had asked you a question last Friday when I saw you. And one of the questions I asked you was, because you work with all kinds of different business owners, I said, who's the hardest to deal with? And what you told me, it's not the CEO of the $100 million company, or the, maybe approaching the 9 figures or high 10 figures. He's like, no, it's like, what'd you say? 1 to 5, I believe, is what your answer was. Yeah. 1 to 5 million. He's like, and why did you say that?
Ego,
right?
Right.
And it's so interesting, because I've been humbled many times in my life, but I've found that the people that have made it over that hump are extremely humble. My business partner, has been my mentor and stuff. I mean, he built a company they sold for, I don't know, tens and tens of millions of dollars. He's given me the number, but I'm not able to say that.
Right.
Not only here, but also up in Washington. And you would never know it. Like, he's very, very humble, and he will tell you every reason why things won't work too. Like, that's one thing that drives me nuts about him, because, you want to talk about like tripwires and stuff. You talk to him about a business, he's going to be like, yeah, I don't know, that's not going to work because blah, 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 blah. But that's his process of then saying, but here's how we can overcome this, 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 and this. But most people don't look at that.
Right.
So when you said that, ego, I had to like put that in there, because in the coaching world, most people haven't done it. They're making most of their money off of coaching, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you should make a ton of money if you got the knowledge. But you got to have the knowledge on doing it first.
Yeah, and what we found is that it's dangerous, right? It's dangerous to hire the wrong coach.
Yeah.
Right? Because these guys read a book or went through a course and got their piece of paper. They're giving you advice. They're helping you run your business, and when they don't have the experience, it becomes very dangerous for you and your organization,
right,
and your people, right? But back to the ego thing, right? When you think about these different companies who have made it and have the humility, what I like to compare that to is when you're walking down the street and you meet the most humble guy, and the guy that's, happy to open the door for you and just seems like the nicest guy in the world, could be a Navy SEAL, right? Because your elite special forces, your Navy SEALs, your Green Berets, your recon guys, they are the most humble guys that you will meet, which falls in line with like Jordan Peterson when he talks about, being dangerous, and to be a true man and be a leader, you've got to be dangerous, right?
He says be a monster,
right?
But know how to control it.
Yep. Just like in business, these high-level businessmen, they are humble as humble can be, and they're so happy to give any level of anything that they have.
Yeah.
Right? I met with a guy this morning, and he just joined this Leading Peers group. And, I mean, he's done big things, but he's never been out in these different groups where it's the leading peers type and people that are in your industry, in your market, and you're helping them.
Yeah.
And he was just talking about how interesting it is and how much it's challenged him, but also been fulfilling to be out there and just giving away the things that he's doing and showing people how to grow.
Yeah.
And that's what you get from most people who have made it.
Right.
Right? Everybody that I've...
You're 100% right. So my earliest mentor was my wife's uncle, Uncle Sean. Well, I've had a few, but so he is the one for, the last 20 years. I've been close to, and he's had some bad health issues. He's 89 this year, but we've been married 19 years, almost 19 years in May. But like I've always clung to him. He's an Armenian guy, about 5'3", probably weighs 110 pounds, soaking wet. The nicest man you'll ever meet. But, he owns casinos. He owned a bunch of urgent cares that he sold around here. He hotels, the largest turquoise dealer in the world. I mean, and nobody would ever know it. He's the nicest man. He's the guy opening your door and all that stuff. And he just poured out like wisdom to me, and never like, you need to do this. It was like, well, have you ever thought about, this? And we would just have a conversation. I go to his place in Malibu. We'd spend, a weekend together, and I would just soak it in because I'm like, who has access to this kind of person? But he was so humble. He was never trying to like just hold everything on. Big time giver, and like that. Same as you. Like, that's been my experience with most people that are super successful. And not to say that they didn't have to be, for lack of a better term, cutthroat at certain times to make sure that they accomplished their target and what they were going after. But that's just not like how they live every portion of their life. They're usually very giving people. So, the humility and the humbleness, I think it's like how you get over that hump.
Right.
Yeah. So, you're consulting now. I don't know that a lot of people that are listening to this necessarily have the types of companies that would hire your consulting from that standpoint, but you do personal business coaching as well.
Right.
What does that look like? Like, who's a good candidate?
So the first one's like your business operating system, right? And then I like to call the battlefield boardroom is more of your personal operating system. And really the way that I like, I guess my ideal client or avatar would be somebody that's in control of their own income, right? So, I mean, it could be sales, it could be C-suite, it could be entrepreneur at a smaller level, but it's really trying to hone in that entrepreneur, like that more in that 1 to 5 million one-on-one.
Yeah.
Like, because them guys, they need to find the humility. They need to get clear on how to operate and how to delegate and how to let go of things and how to really start to organize their day and take control of their day instead of their day running them, right?
Yeah.
Before they can step to that place of humility and being able to lead a company and lead a good amount of people and learn how to ask questions, they have to get over their own stories.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, and it's true. Like, even, I've been in business for a long time. I had my company for 15 years. I sold and all that, but I think back, and I really wish I would have been more humble in several different times of my life. I would have been way further ahead quicker.
Right.
Because I was the guy getting in my own way, and I didn't even know it. And looking back, especially like going through what I went through, the heart transplant and all that stuff, like, you got a lot of time to reflect. I'm like, I feel like I'm in a pretty good place now. I still don't know everything at all. I'm learning, like, constantly trying to learn. But I'm like, gosh dang, I was an arrogant human being at that point in my life. I remember it. And I thought I had it going on. Everything, I didn't. And man, if I would have just switched this, and this. And sometimes you need someone from the outside perspective that can tell you that. Which Eric, has helped me with a lot of that. That's why I brought him on as a partner at Aftershock, because he, I needed someone that could tell me that I was wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you find this, but certainly the up-and-comers, 30, 40, maybe even early 50s, that are building something big, there's not certainly if you've got a certain amount of steam behind you, there's not a whole lot of people that they can tell that person that they're wrong and they're going the right direction. But you need people like that you can listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. You always want somebody in your organization that's going to challenge you and at least ask you a question, right? So many people get these yes men inside of their organization, which are going to run you right off a cliff, because we don't always make the right decision, right? We want somebody we want to empower the people around us to challenge us.
Right.
And you have to have humility in order to have that happen, right? It's so amazing when you sit and watch people and like you said, the thing that got me here may very well be the thing that's holding me back, right? That grit, that go getter, that I'm gonna if it's not gonna get done, I'm gonna do it myself, is exactly the thing that's gonna keep you below that 5 million.
Yeah.
it's great to have that mentality, but it's also you have to allow people, you have to lead people to allow them to start to take over them things,
Yep.
right? One of the big things that people in that demographic kind of fit is they don't understand that allowing their people to fail like they did
Yeah.
is just the cost of education, right? And when you switch that frame of like, hey, I'm investing in my person to make these mistakes,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it becomes okay, right? It allows them to make the mistakes. It allows you to jump in and extract the lessons with them and show them, hey, you see how this could have went a different way. How would you do it different next time, right? And then they don't make that mistake again. Far too often you end up with the entrepreneur that does the exact opposite. Well, it's just easier if I just do it.
Yeah.
Boom, and they pull it, right? And every time that you pull it and say that, what happens?
Well, they don't have an opportunity to think through it. They don't learn a lesson. You're just basically giving them a parachute every time.
Right, and you own it. You're going to own it forever.
Right.
1, 2, you're also creating the person who's always going to come to you and never become a leader. They're always going to be asking you questions. Your phone's always going to be ringing until you empower them to make some mistakes and empower them to make some decisions.
Yeah.
And it just blows me away because you really it all starts at the top. You have to change that mindset. And almost every single person that I've worked with who's 5 million or below has always come and said, well, I just don't have anybody stepping up in my organization.
Yeah.
I just don't have anybody who will challenge me. I just don't have anybody who will bring issues. I just don't have anybody who has any solutions to anything. They always have to call me.
Yep.
Well, whose fault is that?
Exactly. Yeah. Are you familiar with the story of how they catch spider monkeys?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so spider monkeys, I mean, you can Google it, maybe we'll show a picture of it, but they're ugly looking creatures. But like to catch them, like they're very fast, they're very hard to catch. However, what they found was they would take food and they would put it into like a coconut that was mounted down in a place that they could get their hand into to grab it, but then when they go to pull it up, they actually can't get out. Like the
fist is bigger than the hole.
Right. And because of that, people, literally, the catchers would just come and just scoop them up because they wouldn't let go of that thing that was holding them back. And that's the way I picture people that are in that space where they don't want to delegate. And they're like, oh, I'm just going to hold on to this, hold on to that. Well, by letting go of it and letting people make mistakes, like that's one thing to my credit, I learned early I do well. I will delegate. I will let somebody fumble and make a mistake. No problem. Because guess what? Now there's a teachable moment.
Right.
Now there's an opportunity for them to own something. And guess what? They're probably not going to make that mistake again. And they're going to realize that, oh, it's okay for me to step out a little bit and make a mistake and learn. Like that's so valuable. And that's how you really grow great people.
Right.
So switching gears a little bit, you got 7 kids. Right?
Yeah.
How long have you been married?
I've been married since 2005, so this will be my 20-year anniversary this
Wow,
year.
congrats.
Yeah.
I'm 1 year behind you.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, 20 years, man. So 7 kids. What are the age ranges?
So they range from 26 down to 13.
Nice. So what's it like having kids out of the house, kids still in the house?
Oh boy. So you miss them,
Yeah.
right? But you realize it was funny because my wife and I went to dinner the other night with our 2 kids that are at home, and we were like, "Holy crap, that didn't cost that much."
Yeah, right.
You're feeding an army every time you go out, so that was always every time that we'd go do anything, right? Like you had to get the big Suburbans or the vans, and you were always waiting for the reservations, right? You'd go in, you always had the 20% gratuity added on to everything because you always had the big crew, right? So they were always adding gratuity and always, so it's It's been nice. It's been this cool transition of my wife and I really getting to know each other again, and you know, as the kids get older and start to transition out, it's that opportunity for us to not be so focused on them and start to focus on us.
Yeah.
So that's been really cool. I brought her into the business, which was another big like uh-oh moment, but also like okay, this is an opportunity for me, right? Because in just being the way that I am and the mentality that I have, everything's always been business, 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 right? So bringing her into the business has helped us communicate a lot better. I didn't realize, no matter how many times she told me, you didn't tell me that, or you didn't give me the whole story, or this, that, or the other thing. It was, well, yeah, I did, whatever. But as I brought her into the business and I would give her instructions and she would just do what I said and not do the other part, it was like, it opened up my eyes into our personal lives, the way that I was operating, right? So bringing her in exposed me, and I'm thankful for being able to, for her doing that and exposing me, because now I'm communicating in a different way with her. I'm communicating in a different way with my kids. I'm communicating with my clients in a different way because I'm able to see the way that I was operating in high level bullet points,
Right.
and trying to give the leeway in my mind to do things.
Yeah, you give them the broad strokes. You can fill in the rest type of thing. Yep.
But if they don't understand what the strokes are, then then they're always going to fail me, right? They're always going to fail me. So it's that oftentimes people fail because they don't know your expectations. Most people don't know your expectations till they've already failed them, right? And then you've got to come at them with this crazy whatever. But it's your opportunity up front to get clear on expectations, and that's been really cool with my wife, and being able to, you know, just operate and communicate in a different way has been awesome. Having the kids that are out and having 2 grandkids, that's even that's wild. I was bouncing one of my grandkids the other day. It was, you know, he was crying, and it was like, you know, I'm in dad mode, and I'm like, okay, here we go, you know, stop crying, stop, you know, doing everything I can to kind of get him to stop crying, and then something switched inside, and I was like, hey, wait a minute, this isn't mine.
Yeah.
and I was able to hand him off, and I was like, hey, you know, that's nice. So I'm starting to enjoy the transition out of not having to deal with that stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you'll probably have a lot of grandkids, you know, when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
You know, 7 kids. Did you come from a family that size, or?
Well, so I had, growing up, I had an older sister and a younger brother. And then parents got divorced. Dad ended up having 2 kids with his current wife, and she had a son. So there was, you know, that automatic another 3 added. Turns out I have a sister in Sweden that I just found out about recently.
Oh, wow.
So in between the divorce, there was an accident, and there was a sister. So I guess I was from the same size family, but not on purpose. Like I didn't know it. But yeah, I mean, it's something that I remember growing up was like the tight knit. Everybody going to family reunions, everybody coming together, and since, you know, some family members have passed, and I've noticed that that's kind of went away. And one of the exercises that I run during the annuals is during team health is I talk about, you know, what's a family tradition that you want to pass on. And this year I just realized that was a family tradition that was really important to me, that I want to instill and pass on to my family. So I'm thinking this year, well, I am doing it this year, we're all going to Mexico for bringing all the kids, getting everybody together, and then maybe later in the year I'll start to bring aunts and uncles and
Yeah.
really start to bring that family unit back together and do things different. There's just been, you look at families who have grandparents in their lives and aunts and uncles in their lives, and you see how it's like it's been proven over and over and over again that the family's more successful. The people in the family are more successful when they have that unit to rely on. So really, that's something that I realized this year that I want to bring back is the family reunion. Start to bring my wife's side and my side together and build this family unit that's going to support and grow each other.
Yeah, no, I love that. In fact, I'm going to adopt that. Because I've got a very, very, very large family. I had 10 grandparents, through divorces and all that. 27 aunts and uncles. Although when I told Ariel and Adela that, they're Mexican, they're like, "You got 27 aunts and uncles, and?"
Right.
And I'm like, "No, that's a lot." They're like, "Bro, we're Mexican."
Right.
But I mean, I have a gigantic family, but it's all kind of parsed out, and there's not like one hub of it. And then my wife's family, who I'm honestly, if I'm being very honest, I'm closer to her family than I am even mine because I talk to them more. Like they're at my house more, which kind of sucks, but I'll take the responsibility of that. So yeah, I'm gonna bring something together like that. I think that would be a lot of fun, and most of them would get along. I think, as long as we're not talking politics.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a no-no in a lot of scenarios. But that's you bring up the Mexican families, and that's really what you want to create, right? Because they are so tight-knit. They all have they all come together and they do everything together. They have the weddings, the how do you say it?
Quinceañera.
Yeah, they have that thing. They have, like, everything's a big celebration, and Sundays after church they're all together. Like everything's a family unit, and that's kind of what I want to get back to is really bringing that back to popularity, I guess.
100%, and that's one thing I really admire about Ariel and Adela. Like they're Christians just like we are, and they go to church and like every Sunday, like they were at a pizza spot, and it's like all their they have four kids, but all of them are together, and then one of them's getting married. Like the significant other happened to be in town for that, and it's like they're all just sitting around. There's 4 pizzas. They stretch an entire table, and I'm like, that's cool, and that's. But that, if you ask them, that's what they wanted. Like that's what they wanted 20 years ago, before they, ever started having. They're 26 years married now, and I think their oldest is 24. But that's what they always wanted, and it's like, that's cool. And I'll never forget listening to Tucker Carlson, of all people, and he was talking about having kids and how people should have more kids, and it's like, oh, I can't afford it, blah blah blah. You'll find a way to afford it. Like, have more kids, because we need more good parents in this world, and I kind of regret not having more. I have 3, which are amazing, but I'm like, gosh, 4 or 5 would have been kind of cool. Tell my wife that she'd probably punch me right now, but that's cool, man. So, I think we need to do another one of these if you're cool with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think you and I could talk about. I'd like to talk maybe a little bit more about the military side of you. I don't think that's where this conversation needed to go. But this was awesome, man. It
was great.
I know people got a lot out of this, listening to the stories from a business standpoint. How can people contact you, if they want either personal coaching or, want to kind of follow along your journey, whether it be on social media, those types of things?
Yeah, I mean, Instagram, I think it's Deric _Keller. It's spelled a little different. It's Deric. It's like Eric with a D.
Yeah.
Which is how it should be spelled, but nobody spells it that way. I feel like I'm an odd man out, and it seems like the right way to spell it.
Well, it's very funny in our group chat. Like, people put the K, and I did, but it auto-corrected.
Right.
Like, I know it's a C, and I even corrected it. But like some people in our own group chat, they have no idea it's with a K.
Right.
Or a C.
Yeah. So you put. So it's Deric, and then you could also, email me, Deric at Exit Momentum. You can use my cell phone. It's a Wyoming cell phone number. Don't be freaked out. 307-371-3683.
Awesome, man. Well, This was really good. I appreciate you coming on, having the conversation today. I think there will be more of these, and if there's anything I can ever do to help in any scenario that you have, I'm happy to do it. So
I appreciate that, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I know you got a lot out of this. If you're watching the whole thing, great. If you see some clips out there, make sure to share it, because I think there's some people that need to connect with Deric that don't even know it yet. So I appreciate you guys. We will see you next time.